Okay, so as part of your Urban Challenges unit, you're required to know a case study about traffic congestion, the causes of the problem, the effects, and then some of the solutions to alleviate them. The case study that we have studied is obviously London congestion. And the way that we're going to remember this is by drawing what looks roughly like a London bus. Okay? So you'll need to have 3 sections to this across and 3 sections. So you're essentially making a 3x3 box, and then we're going to put some wheels on the bottom so it looks vaguely bus-like. Okay. Now, one of the most important things is to understand why congestion occurs in the first place. And some of the reasons for that begin by, well, obviously we've just got population growth. There's been massive population growth within the UK, and particularly within the southeast of England, mainly due to rural to urban migration. But also, as we know, increasing levels of urbanisation, and we know that natural increase within urban areas is much higher than outside because of the numbers of young people within urban areas. You've also got the fact that London, and particularly urban areas within England, weren't designed for the car. Okay, they were designed for horses and carts. Okay, so not designed for car. And therefore we get very narrow streets in some parts of London, particularly central London, which get congested and blocked very easily. You've also got the fact that car ownership in general has increased because it's become more affordable over time. They were once, when they first came onto the market, luxury items, whereas prices have come down, although they are still expensive things to own. So more and more people are able to have them. And finally, you've got increasing levels of freight, which are goods being transported on the road rather than railway and other such forms of transport. Okay, so that's the reason and the causes for traffic congestion, and that then leads to various different problems. And as with all things in geography, we can divide those into social problems, environmental problems, and finally economic issues. Okay, impacts, consequences, results, whichever you want to call them. Okay, one of the main social problem is obviously the health problems that it causes. Okay, we know that there are harmful chemicals within the emissions from cars, particularly nitrous oxide, that leads to respiratory problems. Okay, and we'll go through some statistics relating to that a little bit later. You've also got the social problem that it means that people have to leave for work a lot earlier in the morning. Their commutes are longer. Okay, and there's the obvious pressures that puts on family life. So we'll draw a little family there, a little child. Okay, if their parents are leaving early, coming back late, that disrupts family life. As people are spending longer away from home. You've also got the social problems of increasing numbers of accidents on the road, and indeed of road rage, as high levels of stress when people are trapped in traffic jams. It leads to higher stress levels and more arguments. Environmental problems are very much related to some of the social problems. You've got, and you do need to be specific about these, the air pollution, you've got the noise pollution, and you get visual pollution. Remember that lots of buildings that you see in London have been blackened by the harmful emissions, and indeed when you do see a building that has been cleaned, it does stand out for being clean. You also have, as new roads are built, destruction of greenfield land, so that open space, particularly on the urban fringe, gets taken up, and at its worst you'll get acid rain, and indeed we know that it contributes to global warming as well. In terms of the economic problems, well, obviously any new roads that get built are expensive. And that will be taken out of taxpayers' money, so perhaps increases in tax, so it gets passed on to local people. You also get the cost of businesses if deliveries are late. If delivery drivers are stuck in traffic jams, it's obviously going to cause businesses money, and that loss of business will lead to lower taxation that's been able to be collected by governments, and so there'll be less investment in public services. And finally, an economic problem is this lateness as well, where we talked about the social problems for people in terms of their commutes are getting longer. It actually can mean a loss of money for businesses. If people are late, if their workers are late, it leads to lower productivity levels for businesses, okay, because they're not as efficient. So those are some of the problems, and obviously we now need to look at, well, what is London doing to try and solve that? What are the solutions to it? So some of the things that we looked at, obviously, perhaps one of the most famous ones is the congestion charge. Okay, so this is a zone within central London where you have to pay £20 if you wish to travel through it. That was brought in about 10 years ago in London, and it's been a real success. In the last 10 years, there's been about a 10% reduction in traffic that can be directly attributed to the London congestion charge, and indeed there are plans to extend that a little bit wider to take in an even bigger part of London. We all know about the Barclays bikes, which are the bikes provided at very low cost within central London areas, and you can rent those either for a day or for a longer period, and there are various docking stations that you can collect those, and that's to encourage people really to use that form of transport rather than getting into their car. On a much larger scale, in London, we also see huge investments in an extension of the existing rail networks. Most recently, we've had the extension of the Jubilee line from central London into East London, and that was done around 2012 for the Olympics. But we also have the Crossrail, which is one of the biggest engineering projects in Europe. That's actually a £15 billion project to extend trains going from east to west, north to south, and that will increase capacity and allow people to get much further. So again, encouraging more people to use public transport because it's a better service. Just want to go back a little bit to this pollution here. Actually, one of the main reasons that these congestion measures are needed is because at the moment about 10,000 deaths a year in London are attributed to air pollution and respiratory problems that people get. So those are very London specific things. One more thing that you could probably add to that is that there is increasing levels of pedestrianisation to certain parts of London. So you've got the north side of Trafalgar Square and Leicester Square and Covent Garden, so these are very touristy areas. They've all been pedestrianised and they've made it much safer for people to walk, and also discouraged car use. Pedestrianisation obviously means removing cars from the roads and making them walking areas only. You also have in southern London the reintroduction of the tram, okay, particularly around the Croydon area. Trams are like buses, they run on train tracks, and they're electric, so they have much lower emissions than cars, and they're environmentally good for that reason. They don't release greenhouse gases. Unfortunately, most of those were removed from lots of cities within England as car ownership increased. You also have businesses who are trying to encourage people to stay at home more. So they are introducing things such as flexi time, and more working from home. So as the internet has increased in speed and efficiency, it actually means that a lot more people can stay at home rather than travelling into their offices in London, and that means that they can do the same kinds of jobs, they can conference call, and again it reduces the pressure on public transport and gets people off the roads particularly. We've also studied such things as park and ride. So these aren't really related to London, but they're just general systems that we've talked about. They might ask you in an exam for different ways. And one thing that they do in London, obviously, is the bus lanes. Okay, so those bus lanes make it quicker to travel by bus very often than be in a car. Only buses, black cabs and cycles can go in there, and so if you make it an incentive for people to travel on public transport, they're more likely to use it and less likely to use their car. Okay?